welcome. Tyler, thank you so much for being here. And we're glad you're here.
Hey, everyone. I'm going to share my screen with some notes so you guys don't have to look at my face the whole time. Can everybody see that? Good. All right. So today we're going to be talking about producing from a leadership lens. So if you've ever made a film before, a lot of what producing is leading people. I made a joke to George when we first got on here that it's really hard to define the word producer because you ask 5 of them and they'll tell you a completely different definition of what a producer does. It's kind of that whole other duties as assigned job on set, but you're also very much leading the project. So if you don't know me, I'm a pastor of a fairly large church. That's what I do for my day job. And so leadership is in every aspect of my life. My wife owns a business. I lead a church, and then we own a film production company and film studio here in Southern Indiana. So I'm going to be coming from the lens very much of leadership. So even if you're not an actual producer, if you lead anything in your life, you're still going to get some nuggets from this. So first one here. I've got 12 points for you guys. We're going to go through them, and then you guys can ask some questions at the end. And there'll be a couple times where I ask you to talk in the middle of it. But number 1, vision first. People follow clarity and not titles. As a producer, our first job shouldn't be to look at schedules and budget and all of that stuff. It should be clarifying the why behind the project. Because if you can clearly demonstrate why you're making a film, whether that's to raise awareness for something, or maybe it's because you found like the greatest script you've ever found. Well, you know what? Your crew and the rest of your producers need to know that. And so as much clarity as you possibly can will lead to a much better on-set and all the way through distribution experience. It allows you then to surround yourself with people who share that same vision. So in our world, in the faith-based film world, when you get on a crew of, say, like 100 people, just so you guys know, I hope I don't burst your bubble here, but not all of them are going to be there just as because they're Jesus followers. Like some people will be there because it's their job. But if as a producer, as a leader of a project, it's not blatantly obvious that this is a faith-based production or a Christ-centered production, you're going to run into some issues. I know this because of personal experience. I hired a really, really, really good DP for a project. And he and I had known each other a really long time. We worked together before. But on one specific project that was very much Christ-centered, we continuously butted heads with one another because he didn't understand the why behind the project. Now, DPs and directors notoriously butt heads anyways, but this was like a different level of that, simply because there wasn't clarity. Which leads to the second part of this. Clarity from leadership, it allows people to answer this question accurately. What is the story I'm writing in my head? So my wife and I, we adopted our daughter back in 2020. She was 17 years old when we adopted her. We started fostering her when she was 16. She had 17 homes before us. She went to 8 high schools, and she has like about 50 pages worth of abuse in her past, in her case file. She had been in the system since she was 3 years old. Extremely difficult situation. She is like the master, though, of writing stories in her head. As human beings, like our brains are designed in a way that we have to tell ourselves some type of narrative to deal with things like trauma or conflict, or pick a topic. Like when we're in any situation, we tell a story to ourselves in our head, regardless of if it's like fully accurate or not. When we have clarity as leaders and people understand the vision of the project, it allows them to answer that question of what's the story I'm writing in my head with actual facts, rather than allowing them to fill in information. There's this Brene Brown special on Netflix. Brene Brown is a psychologist, a Christian psychologist that studies shame. And she talked about the story of when she went to this lake for her 25th wedding anniversary with her husband. And her husband decided that they're going to get up early in the morning and they're going to swim across the lake and back together. And that would be their time together before their 6 children woke up. So the first day they get up to do this, and they were both competitive swimmers in college. That's how they met. They get up to do it. Halfway through swimming across the lake, Brene Brown takes a leap and says, "Steve, I'm just so glad we're doing this together. Like, I feel so connected to you." He looked at her and he said, "Yep, water's good." And he kept going. And so she's like, "What the heck?" And immediately, if that happened, females in this room right now, if that happened to you 25 years into your marriage, what are some things you start thinking? Like, I don't look the same that I did 25 years ago when we were competitive swimmers. He is not feeling this. He doesn't view me the same. I've had 6 children. I clearly am not the same as I once was. All of these shame emotions went through her head, right? She starts writing a story. So they get back to the other side of the lake, and she goes in one more time, and she says, "Steve, I'm really, really feeling connected to you right now." He said, "Yep, the water was great." And she's pretty mad at this point, until she finds out that he didn't hear a word that she had said. The night before, they had went to bed talking about how their kids weren't great swimmers yet. And so the entire time he was swimming across the lake, he was fending off a panic attack because he had convinced himself overnight that a speedboat would come and he would have to rescue one of the kids. So each stroke, he was counting how long it took him to get to the other side of the lake. Can you guys see where a story was written in both of their heads there? So if clarity had been discussed before this situation, they wouldn't have had to have this issue, but instead they waited till they were right in the middle of the heat of the moment, and that's when they started writing these stories. In the same way as filmmakers and leaders, if clarity is brought forth at the beginning, then we won't have to have people writing stories in their heads in the middle. All right, let's go to the next one. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, guys, so I can slow down if you have questions. Number 2, build the team around your weaknesses, not your ego. This one is huge. In fact, I have this incredible quote directly from my wife that said, "Low key, the most important one." She actually just said this right before we started, and so I had to include this. Building the team around your weakness is absolutely how you have to build a team that wants to follow you. The minute we start just creating a bunch of people that are very similar to yourself, that it becomes an echo chamber and like stuff doesn't get done. For example, I work with someone named Justin Overlander. Justin and I have worked together for like about the last 5 years. And Justin is incredibly good at being creative, and he has a way of dealing with people that can empower them in a way that I cannot. I think that was a fancy way of saying he's a much better people person than I am. And so Justin and I work really well together because on set, I will sometimes default to him to deal with some situations that I know I would make worse, not because I'm trying to make them worse, but because of my personality. So I'll say, "Justin, I need you to step in on this." Same thing for creative stuff. So like I'm a pretty creative guy when it comes to problem solving and things like that. Justin's like a regular type of creative that's like good at coming up with stories and like this color means this in this film, so we need to make sure we put it in there. He's like that type of creative. And so I work really well with him because his strengths make up for my weaknesses. A better example though, on a more tactical level, is our assistant director that I typically work with. Her name is Megan. Megan is not a people person at all. But Megan is the most organized human being that I've ever met in my entire life. She has this unbelievable ability to like look at something that looks like chaos to me and turn it into spreadsheets and schedules and organization like that. When you're first starting out as a filmmaker though, it's a really easy trap to fall into, to think you know how to do everything. And so you either just end up doing it all by yourself, or you find other people that you think are very much like you, and that's going to make a good team. Then you butt heads a whole lot. If you can step back and realize that this is not about feeding an ego or that you actually don't have all the answers, you can start building a team around you that actually strengthens what you can bring to the table, and then you strengthen what they can bring to the table, and the whole team becomes significantly stronger. If everyone on your team is just like you, I think your ceiling is going to be pretty low. But if you can surround yourself with people that have better strengths than what you have, the sky's the limit with the ceiling there. Let me ask you guys a question, and somebody can chime in. What's an area of leadership weakness that you have that you could hire someone to intentionally like elevate that weakness?
I think having someone like the Megan that you mentioned, that's the organization queen, That's great. Like spreadsheets, getting all those detailed things. I'm more of the big picture. Not that I can't do some, but that's not my strength. So I would definitely hire somebody who was good at that
Yeah,
for sure.
Melissa makes a good point. It's so I don't want this to sound arrogant at all. I can do a lot of things. Like God has given me the ability to do things, but that doesn't mean I'm the right person to do those things. And so like if I spent all my time doing the spreadsheets and the scheduling and sending out all the call sheets and things like that, I'm not taking my God-given abilities and using them in the proper place. Somebody else?
Think for
Uh,
me, when what you mentioned in terms of when you're first starting out, especially in the indie market, you are wearing a bunch of hats because the money's not there. So you're doing a lot of stuff, but no, the choice for me, it sounds like it would be really nice to have like a Justin, I think you mentioned his name was. I need someone that's out there like smoothing feathers and it's okay and all of that because I naturally default to the spreadsheets type of, get this done. And so that may not be what's needed in that moment. So it sounds like that's what I would be looking for to link arms with.
Tyler, there is a great resource that I recommend to my speech and debate kids called Strength Finders 2.0, and it talks about exactly what you're talking about. You take an online test and it tells you what your top 5 strengths are. But the resource that the book is also helps you figure out what kind of strength profile you would look for to build a synergistic teammate. And so that is just a fabulous resource. It's $30 that'll change your life and help you realize what you need. Because I'm like Melissa, I resisted being producer because I thought I had to do the analytics and the math and the spreadsheets. And I was recently at an event and I met people talking about there is a convention for Excel spreadsheets. And I went, I need to know some of these people because they were lit up about things that just like
Oh,
give me a stomach ache. And I went, you know what? There's people up there who are up about what we do not like at all.
Yeah, it's good. And alongside of that Strength Finder, one that she just mentioned, there's one called Working Genius by Patrick Lencioni. Working Genius is really good if you have an established team, but it's also really good just for self-discovery. So it puts you in like 5 different categories and then it basically shows you how to like implement people around you that can complement those categories, but similar kind of thing. But Working Genius is really good too.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. All right, number 3, prepare your team for the emotional reality of filmmaking. I don't know if you guys know this. Making a movie is super hard. Like, it's not an easy thing to make a film. And then also, it's much harder to make a film that someone actually wants to watch. And there's a big difference in what I just said. Anybody can make a film. Like, we all have phones at this point that shoot 4K video. We could all go do it if we wanted to. But making a film that somebody actually wants to watch or that like gains some steam, it's challenging navigating that world. Filmmaking will put you on a big pedestal one day, and then you'll find yourself like in a ditch the next day. Like it happens that quickly. Let me give you an example. I've got a film out right now in theaters nationwide. It opened last week in a few hundred theaters. We added a lot of theaters for week 2. And then I don't know if you guys know, but there's like 1,000 degrees of snow on the ground. Ultimate highs and ultimate lows. It did well enough week 1 to expand. Have no idea what's going to happen after week 2 when nobody could go to the theater, and we're getting emails left and right that theaters are literally closing for the week. Because it's not as simple as how normal humans work. The film world's different. So we don't know if the movie theater will continue it the next week or if they won't. So there's ultimate highs and ultimate lows there. So the question isn't if it will get hard, because it will. The question is whether your team was prepared for it to get hard. And that starts at the top as a producer, as a leader. Preparing your team for that emotional reality. It's asking your team up front things like this, like, are you ready for chaos? Are you ready for discouragement? Are you ready for criticism? Guys, the internet exists. You'll have, if you have a movie that does anything, you'll have reviews of it instantaneously. And I don't know if you know it, but the internet's mean. They're like seventh grade boys and girls. They're like that level of mean all the time. And then on the flip side, are you ready for success too? Because as Christ's followers, if you have a certain level of success, you have to practice something that none of us like to practice. It's called humility. And sometimes you get to choose humility even when the Spirit hasn't done that work in you yet. You still get to choose it. Some people can survive rock bottom, but also crumble under spotlight. It's not always just the hard times that make it difficult. It's the really good times too, is where you find out what your character is. So preparing your team for that emotional reality up front is a great way to get a team that will actually follow you. Number 4, servant leadership. Leaders eat last. I read a book called Leaders Eat Last several years ago. It's a really good leadership book. And it's also, it rings true. I went to Africa last year. In March of last year, I went to Africa. A friend of mine from Christian Casting Community, her name is Laura May. We helped start a film school in Uganda. And I got to go in person and teach there for about 10 days. And the team that I took with me did not understand this concept of leaders eating last. They're phenomenal people, but it didn't even cross their mind, because in a culture like Africa, it's very much a culture of honor. So to them, like, they wanted to honor their guests by having them have like the nicest place to eat, the nicest things and stuff like that. So day one, that's what we did. I got the team together after the first day and I said, hey guys, what if we flipped it? What if we told these kids, who most of them came from the streets and have never had a lot of stuff, what if we said, no, you guys are in the place of honor today, and we practice this leaders eating last thing? For the next 9 days after that, the culture completely shifted of how they viewed us and how we viewed them. This is the Jesus model. I'm not rewriting history here. We follow the greatest servant leader in the history of humanity. But when we do that, it means we exist to serve the team and not the other way around. I'm going to say that one more time. As leaders, we exist to serve the team, not the other way around. It doesn't always work like this in Hollywood, and sometimes it still actually works where there's a good film. I'm not trying to teach you guys how to make a good film, though. I'm trying to teach you guys how to build teams that want to continue following you. You can make a really, really good product and still not be a jerk at the end of the day. And so it means you have to do things like treating PAs with the same dignity as your executive producer, learning people's names. So when we made I Can, which was released in theaters in 2023, one of the pieces of press that we did during a press junket was that we were on Major League Baseball Network, so Major League Baseball Tonight. It was the first ever softball movie made, so we flew to New York and we did a live interview in studio there. And the guy that runs Major League Baseball Network is a guy named Harold Reynolds. If you're a sports fan, you'll know that name. He's an incredibly famous baseball player. And Harold Reynolds walked us around the studio before we started. They had about 350 employees. He knew every single one of them's name, and he knew something about them. So even if they were the person in the statistics room that was just the spreadsheet person, all the way to the PA that was handing coffee to the executive producer, he knew exactly what they were going through in their life, and he knew their name. And that stuck with me. 3 years later, I still think about what a boss to work for that cares enough about you to remember your name and some things about you. Saying thank you goes a long way. When we're servant leaders, we don't become expectant. We still have gratitude in our hearts. And I've been on sets before where that's not the case from some producers, where people will do something for them and they sometimes forget that we're especially on a Christian set, that we're all trying to look a whole lot like Jesus. And so they become expectant, and it's almost as if they're entitled for them to be served. We can't let that happen if we want to be good leaders that have people follow us. It means sometimes whenever it's allowed, when you get on union sets, this one gets a little harder, but it means helping them pack up gear at the end of the day. For many of us, you're not working on like big union sets where they're gonna, if you touch one piece of gear, like IATSE comes and like cut your head off or whatever they do. But like on a non-union independent set, it's okay for you to help pack up at the end of the day and help load the grip truck and all of that kind of stuff. It also means you step in when things fall apart. Things will fall apart on set, and sometimes you got to step in and do things that aren't in your role, and that's okay. The higher your role is, the more responsibility you carry to kind of turn the pyramid upside down. If leaders eat last, it means that we elevate the least of these, which is last time I had read Matthew chapter 5, pretty much all of the Sermon on the Mount. If we model that in our leadership, people want to follow us. It means we don't take the best seats. It means we don't take credit first, and it means we don't disappear when things get inconvenient, which is a huge one that I see on sets all the time. Some of the producers I've worked with in the past, they love to be around when things are going super well, and then you can't find them anywhere when things are not going super well. Let's go to the next one. Number 5, the pulse of the team. Connection builds trust. So every Monday for my staff at church, we have a leadership team, and every Monday we meet and do a staff pulse check-in. So we literally go down the line of every single staff member and we ask a handful of questions to see if anybody's heard that they're struggling, or if somebody needs to be built up, or if there's something that somebody did that was amazing that we need to like publicly praise them for. Great producers will do the same thing on film sets. They'll read the room and they'll look for opportunities to boost people. They'll look for opportunities to take people aside to have hard conversations with. When you're a producer, you don't just manage tasks. You're managing a lot of people's emotional temperature. And that is very much a will be on every single movie set statement. People have emotions, and most of the people in the art world, they wear them on their sleeves. And so you're managing tons of emotions as leaders, which leads to connection though. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. I've worked with this script supervisor now on like 5 different projects. And this person is not a Christ follower. In fact, they don't want really anything to do with the corporate church world. But we met on a production where she was the PA and I was the DP of the project. Now, what did I say? That if you're in a leadership level, you have a responsibility to kind of turn that pyramid upside down. So you treat PAs with as much respect as you would like a producer. So she and I became really close on this set, and I invited her to become a script supervisor on the next film that I was producing and directing. And after 3 times of doing that and building that trust through this connection by keeping a pulse on her emotional state and really showing her that I cared about her, she started coming to church with us on the weekends during when we were off set. She had not been to church since she was about 6 years old, and she's like 25. And so she came to church throughout the entire production, and then we brought her back 2 years later, and she did the same thing. Guys, I don't know if that will ever lead to her following the Lord, but I will tell you that because we had a pulse on her emotional connection, because we treated her with dignity, and because that connection built trust, she's a whole lot closer to Jesus now than she was 6 years ago when I first met her. So this pulse of the team, making sure we have these connections that build trust, is vital, in not just as a leader for the film world, but as leaders that are representing Christ. It's asking yourself things like, is my team tired? Is someone carrying an extra load? Do these people feel seen, or do they feel just used? And if you can start asking yourself honest questions like that, you can start to value them as people made in God's image, not just people you hired that you're paying a paycheck to. Number 6, don't be the stumbling block. Kind of a subheading here could be, am I being a hindrance or am I being a help? Many times in a leadership role, especially as you first start out and you haven't learned how to delegate very well yet, you can unintentionally be a stumbling block by simply just stepping into situations that you probably shouldn't be stepping into. Is my leadership style slowing someone down? It's a necessary question that you need to ask. Am I holding someone back because of things like my own insecurity? Am I micromanaging someone who really just needs to be trusted? These are hard questions that I feel like are necessary as leaders. It goes back to what I talked about hiring the people around you that elevate your weaknesses and turn them into strengths. Well, if we're insecure and we don't want to delegate and things like that, we're going to end up being stumbling blocks. Sometimes the biggest obstacle on set isn't budget or weather. Sometimes it's actually the producer. It's us making bad decisions because of our own insecurities. Leadership requires the humility to ask, am I the problem? Number 7, walk the talk. Character travels faster than credits. My goodness, in this specific industry that we are in, everyone is like 1 degree from everyone else. It is the wildest thing of all time. I was out at Kappa Studios in Burbank back in August, I believe. And I asked Jason, who's on here, if he wanted to come hang out. We only get to see each other at film festivals normally. And he lives in Los Angeles. I said, hey, come down for the day. And you were in Kappa for a few hours. And this statement rings very true. Like, everyone there was tied to like 50 different projects that were happening in the Christian film world. And everybody knew everybody. Which means if you're a douche on set, everybody's going to know about it. Like, it's going to be a thing. So don't. If you're talking one way, but your walk is completely different, then this is just general principle as a Christ follower. Word will travel. But in this specific industry, it travels so quickly. The minute that you have a run-in with some producer or some director, if they have any credit or ties to other people, there's a good chance that they're going to take somebody else aside and say, hey, this guy's talented, this girl's talented, but I just need you to know this was my experience with them on set. Your reputation moves faster than your resume. People talk about how you treat crew members. They talk about how you respond under pressure. They talk about whether your values are real or you're just performing in front of people. Leadership doesn't end when the camera cuts. It ends never as a leader. You are always under a microscope, and people are always watching what you are doing, how you're acting, how you're treating people. We see this in the church world a lot. We see like incredibly talented pastors and speakers and writers that end up being horrible behind the scenes. And according to the scriptures, everything that's dark, when the light comes in, it will come out. Like, there's not an option for that. And so your character, when people are not in the room, how you act, it's really important in building teams that people want to actually follow you as the leader. I got a picture here. This is an example of one time where I'm not sure how I would grade myself as a leader on this one, but this happened. So we shot at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for Learning You, which is the movie that's out in theaters right now. And it was 30 degrees Fahrenheit when we were shooting. This picture is 4 of our producers running into the ocean on 30-degree weather. Here's the reason. We kept telling the actors, hey, it's not that cold. We were lying. It was super cold. But we got to a point where everyone like couldn't function because of how cold they are. So I played college football. I came from an athletic background. I was not like, I did show choir to play piano in the combo, but then like I would leave show choir to like go into the gym. So like it is ingrained in me not to be an artsy person. And if you're super artsy, I apologize. I'm not making fun of you at all. We're built usually pretty differently. And so I don't handle things well. Like, this is why I need a Justin in my life. It's because I don't handle things like I'm too cold to act. I'm like, all right, you're getting paid money, just act, which is why Justin handles that. So because I kept saying it's not cold, I felt like I had to walk the talk. My wife would tell me I went full psycho mode on this one. But what I did was I decided to direct the rest of the day in a t-shirt and shorts. And basically it was like, we're going to see who has the stronger will here between you actors who are freezing, but you have coats on, and me, director, who is not having a good time because I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. Now, this seems really dumb, and it seems like kind of a jerk thing to do. You'd have to have been there. It turned into this massive joke. But I basically told them, like, if you guys stop complaining about the cold and we get through this, myself and 3 of our other producers will jump into the ocean. I didn't ask them, but they were now part of this. And so they did. Everyone stopped complaining. They kicked it into high gear. We recognized we were all cold. It is what it is. And then we bonded together by watching the four of us jump into the ocean, which was like such a stupid idea. But it means we actually walked the talk there. So I issued a challenge to our people, and they responded to it. But if I would have backed out there at the end, how do you think the rest of those 8 days shooting on the beach would have gone? Not great, right? It would have been horrible. You have to walk the talk. I saw a comment that said, "Thank God for Justin Overlander." Amen. He handles that a lot better than I do. Okay, 8, right people, right seats on the bus. It's not about just who you hire, it's where you place them. Because there's going to be people, specifically people that you give chances to when they're first starting out, like maybe in like PA roles and things like that, that end up having like a whole lot of skill set that you just simply didn't know about. And so finding them the actual right place on the bus is probably better sometimes than just leaving them in some role where they're kind of wasting their talents. And as a leader, when you have a pulse on your team, on that culture, it's really easy to spot this. You can identify strengths, you can place people where they can win, and it also gives you the flexibility to adjust when something isn't working. And so let me give you an example of that. We had someone that I worked with as a producer that was really, really talented as an editor. And in the production role, she was kind of struggling to find her place. She was more of an introverted personality, had a lot of skills to bring to the table, but like putting her in a leadership role in front of people wasn't where she was thriving. What we ended up doing though is having her do the dailies. And I just asked her to do this so we could review them. I didn't realize she was gonna like sync audio and like get everything ready in Avid to be able to like easily send it to the editor. And so by making one small shift from like her being in front, like giving orders, to saying like, "Hey, I know you're really good at editing. I know you're introverted. This is really helpful for us. Can you do this?" It actually saved us 2.5 weeks in the editing room, which is like thousands and thousands of dollars, because she was playing in her strengths. She was now on the right seat on the bus, and we were all moving forward together. Misplaced talent, if they have talent, it doesn't usually fall and fail super loudly. Like it won't be crazy noticeable quickly, but it fails slowly. So if someone's on the wrong seat, but they're on the right bus, but they're still on the wrong seat, you're not going to notice that day 2. You might notice it like day 40 of being on set though, when they're completely burned out because they're not operating within their element of passion or expertise. Number 9, inner circle and onset hierarchy. Not everyone, this is really important, not everyone gets access equally to the producers and the director, and that's okay. Now, when you're first starting out and your film crew is like you, your husband, your dog, and you're like your 4-year-old child that's like holding the boom mic, it's a different story. But if you're in like a scenario where you have lots of crew and lots of moving parts, this is vital. Because what you don't want to have happen is everybody and their brother coming up to the creative producers and the director with ideas. We spend about 1.5 years in pre-production for every film that we do. And so if a kid straight out of college that's a PA has direct access to the creative producers and the director, do you think that the idea that they thought of the day of on set for like 12 seconds, that we maybe had discussed that in the 2 years prior when we were thinking of every excruciating detail? Yeah, probably. So we actually send out these flow charts. Here, this was from ICANN and this is from Learning You, where we like visually share, this is your chain of command. We send this out about a month out to the crew, and everybody knows who they talk to. So they like PAs might have an amazing idea. Well, just funnel it through this AD2, and then they'll give it to the assistant director, and then it'll get up the food chain. But if you don't do something like this on set, it becomes chaos. And leaders have a really hard time leading in chaos. Like you have to be prepared for chaos, but that should be like reactionary stuff that you don't expect happening. This is stuff that you can easily prevent by simply having an on-set hierarchy. Here's one caveat to that though. Hierarchy should never eliminate dignity. Remember the story I told you guys about the PA that became a strip supervisor? This doesn't give you permission to treat people any differently. This just gives you a chain of command from which they can share concerns and ideas. But hierarchy without humility, it becomes toxic. And that's what we cannot let happen. So we still have to be servant leaders while having order. It's that grace and truth being put completely side by side together that Jesus talks about. Number 10, pre-production is leadership in advance. This is the biggest thing that I notice with young filmmakers or filmmakers starting out, is that they will completely neglect pre-production. Anticipating problems, deciding what matters, all of the stuff that happens in pre-production, it will directly affect post-production and even distribution. Every decision that you're making in the development phase and the pre-production phase is going to affect what happens on set, how it's produced after the fact, and the distribution model. For our films, we go into it knowing exactly who our target audience is for distribution. Usually we go into it knowing who's going to distribute it. Is it going to be theatrical? Is it going straight to streaming? All of that stuff, they're decisions we make way in advance because leaders have to be prepared. This allows us not to operate while we're on set and after with making like really hard decisions on the fly. This allows us to think through them well ahead of time. So we come into it with ammo already rather than just trying to make it up as we go. This one right here also, it leads me to a question that was posed to me when I first started in ministry about 14 years ago. Our old lead pastor was a guy named Randy Kirk. And prior to becoming the lead pastor, he was a two-time Division II college basketball national championship head coach, which was like the weirdest way of becoming a pastor, to be a like national champion basketball coach in college to the lead pastor at a small town church in southern Indiana. But he told me this like probably the very first week I started in ministry, and it reshaped the way I lead and the way I think on a lot of things. But you ready for the question? It's this: is it a piano? Everyone's like, oh, wow, that was so life inspiring. Thank you for that insight. Let me explain. When you're making a piano, every single detail has to be perfect. Otherwise, the piano will never, ever be in tune. It can be the most beautiful thing of all time, but you get one little tiny piece right, and it will not ever be in tune, no matter how hard you try to tune it. So when it's a piano, you better pay attention and really make sure everything's perfect. But if it isn't a piano, you don't have to have that level of detail. There are some things in filmmaking that are pianos. There's a whole lot of things in filmmaking that are not at all pianos. But as leaders, if we get tied up too much in treating everything like it's a piano, we become the stumbling block to not let things continue to move forward. And so when we're doing pre-production and we have that really ironed out in advance, we don't have to make is it a piano decisions in the chaos that's happening, because we've already made those big decisions. Now we're just working on things that need to pivot that aren't pianos. Now, sometimes you'll get thrown a wrench that something has to be absolutely perfect that you didn't see coming. But I will tell you from the last 11 years of experience of doing this, they're not nearly as often if you focus on pre-production. Let's go to the next one. We're almost there, guys, and then we can ask some questions. Number 11, believe in people before they believe in themselves. As a leader, you have opportunities to speak life into people in unique ways simply because of the seat that you've been placed in. You get to call out things like potential. You get to speak identity over them. You get to give opportunity with guidance. And some people rise simply because someone believed in them first. Now, once again, I'm not making this one up. This is straight from the way Jesus lived his life. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the rabbinical structure of the time of Jesus, but rabbis, like people wanted to follow them. So from 0 to 12, if you were a Jewish kid, you went to primary school at 12 years old, you're done with primary school, you had memorized the whole Torah. And so the instructors would say, let's take the brightest of the brightest, they get to go to secondary school. Everybody else, hey, go back to your house. Good job in the first 12 years of your life, but you go be an apprentice for things like a fisherman or a carpenter. We need to take these kids and we need to help them study. So from 12 to 18, they would go to secondary school. And after secondary school was over, the brightest of the brightest, they got to apply to study under something called a rabbi. And then everybody else got to go back home take an apprenticeship with their family and pray that they had kids that would be able to study under a rabbi. It would be like getting accepted into like Harvard or Yale. It's a big deal, right? So who do you think that Jesus started his ministry with that literally changed the world, and we're still reading some of their writings to thousands of years later? Mostly the people that struck out in the 0 to 12 range. The ones that had to go become apprentices that were fishermen, tax collectors, like that type of person. That's who Jesus started this revolution with, this upside down kingdom with. And I can make the case that for many of his followers, especially the first disciples, he believed in them a whole lot more than they believed in him right at the beginning. We don't get the Jesus is the Christ speech from Peter for a lot longer after he already started following him. In fact, we get a whole lot of screw ups from people like Peter. And so we get the same opportunity to do that with the people that we are around. We can speak life into them and let people know that we believe in you. We believe in you because God believed in me, and I am nothing without his grace and his power. And so I think you can be something as well. And you would be surprised how many people will surprise you with what they can do. And also how many people will be incredibly loyal to you as a leader once they believe that you believe in them. Leads me to my last one. Be willing to be wrong. Number 12. This goes back into the not having echo chambers thing. So if we hire the people around us that amplify our weaknesses with their strengths, they're probably going to be pretty sharp people. But if you are so close-fisted on your own personal preferences and not allow them to speak into the project, they're not going to want to continue working with you. Feedback is really good. Transparent feedback is sometimes really hard to take, but it's really good, especially if you surround yourself with the right people. But producers that aren't willing to be wrong, they become people that stifle projects. I would challenge you as leaders to invite other people's ideas, invite their pushback, invite them to submit better solutions for things, because being wrong doesn't weaken leadership. What it does is it strengthens trust. And when you're trusting in a relationship with someone and it's open and honest, you both become better out of that situation. The best idea should win on your project, not the loudest voice or who said the idea. Now, like I said, there's hierarchy while you're on set. A lot of these decisions need to be made during pre-production. This all builds to this. But producers that hold on, especially in the film world, hold on to specific ideas that either like can't be done because of budget reasons or might not be the best fit for their target demographic. If they hold on to those so close-fisted, the end product is not going to be where you want it to be. A few last thoughts. Closing thoughts are these. Producing is leadership because you get a chance to shape the culture. You steward the people. You set the tone long before the first shot and long after the wrap. People won't remember every single frame that you've ever produced, but they will never forget how you led them while you made the project. Most of us, I hope every single one of us makes Oscar-worthy films that reach millions and millions and millions of people. But the reality of that is not super high. But what we will be able to do is we'll be able to be on sets with people where as leaders, as in our producer role, we can either exemplify Christ or we can show them a worldly way. They'll remember which one of those you pick. I'll end it there. We can talk. You guys can ask questions, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you so much, Tyler. That was wonderful. I couldn't write fast enough to take notes. That was great. First, there was a question about your hierarchy sketch. Can you give access to those in paper form to people?
Oh,
Is
sure.
that something that you could do? Okay, great. So that's answered yes. So you'll
Where
just
do
have to
I-
reach out to him. It was
Yeah.
a question earlier.
Yep.
Tanya and Tina both asked if they could get copies of those.
Yep.
Now they've got a question here. They'll be collaborating with a DP and gaffer. Who are not people of faith. They see the project as a way to sow a seed of Jesus through the process, not just the final film. How can they clearly communicate the vision to inspire them to give their best and connect with the heart of the story as they bring it to life? I'll say this before he answers, as he thinks about that answer. If you have a question that you want to ask verbally, go ahead and raise your hand. You can click on the reactions down below on your screen to hit raise your hand, then I can call on you. So it's not chaos. Keep yourself muted until such time as you're called upon. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. All right.
So on that one, so I don't even remember the last time I worked with a DP that was somebody that was following Christ. We need apparently we all need to like sit down and pray for DPs because like I haven't found one that fits the style I'm looking for that is also a Jesus follower yet. But you can use that opportunity on set to, like you said, sow that seed. And so if I were you, my focus would be one, making sure they align with the stylistic look that you want for the film. They align with knowing that this film is faith-based, is not like a shock to them when they get on set. But then I would spend a whole lot of time showing them Jesus through the way that you live while on set. And that'll make a world of difference in their faith walk. Maybe not on this project, but down the road. I personally have had times where I've talked to specifically DPs that were not Christians, but went through hardships years later in their life and didn't know who else to reach out to. So they reached out to us. And my wife and I would like take them to dinner for many weeks in a row to have those faith-based conversations. And so it makes a huge difference of how you treat them specifically on set. As far as the technical side goes, just make sure they align with the actual look and feel of the project you want.
Good. Now Melissa has a question. Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay, yeah, great. A lot of great stuff that, especially about being in leadership and pouring into crew and being an example. I've worked on different corporate things as well as some productions where you've seen that ego and that type of thing. My question is, and this may be kind of a harder, broader question, but sometimes there are people who are on the set who can be a problem. And you want to balance, okay, yes, we want to be gracious, we want to give opportunity, pour in, but at the same time, if the behavior continues or it's gossiping or it's this constant back and forth, a decision has to be made. So do you, and again, this may be abroad, it might be situation by situation, do you have things in that keep in your head, that you keep in your mind like a checklist, or like, okay, at this point, I'm sorry, we're not a right fit? Because that affects the other crew. I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I have
Thank you.
a very specific example about that, actually. So I worked with someone that literally day one, it had to be the Holy Spirit. Like I could discern this was not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I brought it to the other producers. He was in a prominent role. Like it would have been a really hard role for us to switch out on the first day of shooting. Brought it to the producers. They were like, we need to give it some more time. Like we cannot do that right now. It got to like day 7 out of 34. And I ended up having to call him after we wrapped one night. And like, I basically said, like, here are your 2 options. You can make this right tomorrow and you can stop treating people the way you're treating them. And you can apologize publicly in front of them, or I'm going to fire you right now and we're going to hang up this phone and you're not going to be on set tomorrow. And like, as leaders, you have to make hard calls like that sometimes. Now, I did this in love. I gave him as many possible chances as I could. Like you could talk to him right now and he would not at all question my motives behind that, because he knew he was being horrible on set. Yeah. He chose the first route, and it was way better after that. He apologized publicly the next day. He started treating the crew a whole lot better. But you can't control how people react to things like that. You can only make those hard calls as leaders. Fortunately, I brought it to the producers before, like the rest of the producers beforehand, so it wasn't like just me making that call by myself. But you're right, there is a point where you get to a spot where, like, for the betterment of this project, I'm gonna have to like wipe my sandals off and move on. Like Jesus told the disciples to do that. I think it's totally fine for us to make those calls. Let's just do that not out of ego, though, and let's humble ourselves. Let's pray about it first and try to discern the exact right decision, led by the Spirit, not led by our own human flesh.
Sure. Yeah, because nobody wants to do that, but sometimes, for the sake of the sanity of everybody, it's like,
yep,
that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tanya, you have a question.
I do. I checked out your website last night, Tyler, and what was interesting and surprising to me was you've got like 12 producers, because I was like kind of researching the type of producer that I am, and I'm definitely a creative producer. And it didn't have specific titles. So that was actually intriguing to me, because I've never heard of somebody having such a big stable of producers. And so how I mean, like you were talking about Megan, like she is an organizer, and I totally get that, and that's awesome. But like, how do you structure that? Like, I love that you said like you'll spend a year and a half in pre-production. So during that time, like, how are you connecting and interacting with such a large group of people? And how do y'all like, is it like, are you the leader in as far as the driver for ideas, or is it a collaborative effort and y'all are discussing, hey, what's our next project? And then everybody is brainstorming, then you find an idea, everybody can get around. And like, what is that structure like? And within that realm, when you're building a team of producers, like what are the types of people that you like working with? Like I totally get getting different strengths and stuff like that. So what are the dynamics of what that looks like in pre-production, production and post-production where everybody comes into the mix?
Yeah. So I'm going to say something controversial. I'm sorry. Credits mean absolutely nothing to me. So we throw around producer credits like it's candy on Halloween. But we came from a church making these films. And so we just built up people in the ministry that ended up becoming like their own version of movie producers. But not all of them on the website are on all of our projects. So like we have this team, like this base of a team that we work with, but maybe a handful of them will be on this project and another handful on this project because of the strengths thing. Here's how we did it for Learning You. So we had Steve DeGrassi was our like creative supervisor, like the supervising producer for all of creative. So myself, Justin Overlander, the DP of the project, the set designer of the project, we all were in meetings weekly with him, going over like every aspect of the script to iron out the creative side. A guy named Ed led all of the financial stuff. So he was like the line producer, and he had a team under him that were working out contracts with actors, and Megan was a part of that as the assistant director, working with him to make sure we were under budget for flights and transportation, all that stuff. They didn't meet weekly. They met like once every month or so. Then we had a development producer side. So Brad Silverman, myself, Justin Overlander, and a couple other people. We worked with, it doesn't always work like this, but we just happened to purchase a script from someone that was willing to work with us. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you just purchase a script and they're like, they can't handle feedback, or they're just like, take it and run with it. But this time we had that. So Brad kind of led that team. We just had multiple teams doing multiple different things. They were all like leading towards the same direction, but we weren't all meeting at the same time. We did like all producer meetings here at the studio, like once every 2 months. And it would be like opportunities for people to kind of take their various aspects of what they were doing, give reports to the whole crew so we knew what was going on. We also have a guy named Ty Carter that's he helped start the company, but his background's marketing. So he was a producer that was primarily focused on all aspects of distribution and marketing, even from like the way development stage.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hmm?
Kara, go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Tyler. I had a question in terms of maybe the percentage of crew that's Christian versus non-Christian, and it's very important in terms of who you surround yourself with. You mentioned the DP, that you can't find Christian DP. Yes, exactly. And so do you notice that there's certain behaviors that you have to deal with because you're not necessarily crewed up 100% Christian? Do you have to say no to certain things? I know I've had to say no because that's not the road that we're taking. This is a Christian. It's not, no. So do you find yourself having to deal with some of that, or just as you go on and progress that it's less?
It's a little less. I dealt with that more when I was just doing DP work. So when I was DPing and getting hired by other people, I noticed that a whole lot more, where I had to make personal decisions of like, yeah, I'm not going to be part of this, or like, yeah, I can be a part of this and be a light in it. Like you discern that. But on my own projects, like we start every day with an on-set devotional that we expect the cast and crew to be at. We can't make it mandatory, obviously, but it's like blatantly obvious whenever there's like 2 people out of 100 that aren't participating. Like it's that whole like FOMO kind of thing. And so like the way we are structured, people that are going to work with us, I'm not shy about saying, here's how it's going to be like. So we're going to do devotions together. We're going to pray together and all that stuff. And if that's not your thing, like that's totally okay. But if you want to be a part of that, we'd love to have you. And 9 times out of 10, people will say like, that's not typically my thing, but I love the project. I want to be a part of it. And it ends up being a really good witnessing opportunity. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
That's wonderful. Any other questions? We've got time here. Don't let this wisdom go.
Okay, I've got another one. When y'all are like brainstorming, like on the next project, when you're looking at like, what do you personally see as like the biggest gap in storytelling in, faith-based films, and how do you decide whether something is fundable? Like, is this an idea that is good enough for that?
Yeah, I can only give you my own opinion on this, so
Right.
take this for whatever it's worth. For us, it's a 2-part question. The first part is this usable for ministry? So that changes the answer of, is it fundable for me? Like if I see something that I'm like, I can take this into jails and prisons, or I can use this on mission trips that are in different, like dubbed in different languages to present the gospel in a way that somebody else hasn't heard before. That's one category of this. If it's strictly from a marketing side, like it's strange. The faith-based film world is very strange because we have all these stipulations of what a faith-based film is. And is anybody else a pastor here? Like, anybody else write sermons? Okay, yeah. Writing a sermon's way different than writing a screenplay, except screenplay writers in the Christian film world decide that they're going to try to write a sermon, and what it ends up being typically is not a great sermon or screenplay. And so we have to decide, like, is it ministry? And then let's go for the sermon screenplay. If it's not ministry, though, like, how can we tell a compelling story that has a gospel message that's actually still marketable? Which is where going into niche audiences, I think at least, makes a huge difference. Unless you've got like massive money behind the project, finding stories that specifically appeal to like very specific audiences is a very viable way of finding funding and like letting the investors know we haven't already built in audience. So the last 2 films that I've made that weren't like ministry type films that were wider release, one was the very first ever softball movie made, which softball is the 2nd fastest growing sport in the United States, and they don't have a movie. Like football, I had Rudy and Remember the Titans and Friday Night Lights and all that stuff to watch as a kid. Well, these girls don't have anything, so we made one. And we already had this massive built-in audience of softball teams that we knew would go to movie theaters. For this next one, we made one about autism, but it was specifically from the angle of parents and caregivers of the autism community. And so we partnered that with a nonprofit that we started that's a nationwide nonprofit that was like geared towards providing like resources of counseling and respite trainings for that community. And we had a built-in audience already ready before we ever shot the film. So for us, that's the 2 questions. Like, is this a ministry thing, or is this like a niche audience that we know that we can market towards? Because like we don't have the type of money to market to a mass audience. And not, like, I love the people in the Christian film world, but nobody here has a name that is like a DiCaprio or something that's just going to draw people into watching the film. So hope that answers your question.
Quick comment, something you said much earlier about picking up gear and just being super helpful. The somewhat flip side of that, and something that you need to sort of talk to the department heads about, is that you might have a propensity to want to do that because you just want to help. I did that on one shoot, and they got upset with me. They thought it was disrespectful. They thought that, hey, aren't we doing our job, that you have to do this? And that was not my intention at all. But when they told me, we came to an understanding. I just want to help you guys. It wasn't being disrespectful. So just A heads up, some people have a different perspective on that.
And if you're on a union set, don't do that under any circumstance.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for that. That's good to know because I would be the one getting in trouble for helping with everything. All right. So, Jason, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. Quick comment on that thing as well. When I was directing a short film, I had a producer come up to me and I was like eating something and I was like, oh, I need to find the trash. I need to throw this away. And they were like, oh, just hand it to me. I'll throw it away for you. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna. You shouldn't have to throw away my trash. That's like, I don't know. That just felt so wrong. And they like put their hand on my shoulder and said, listen, you're here to direct. I'm here to help you. And so, them as a producer, that sort of posture from them sort of gave me the freedom of like, wow, that is such a different mindset than I would expect from someone. And it just showed how much of a servant they were. Okay, the questions. I would love for you to talk more about pre-production as your team and what that looks like. Is that year and a half really also encompassing really developing a script? And then when does that flip over into, okay, we're setting up locations, and I'd love to hear you share with people about the studio you have and how that factors in. And then I would also love to hear about the balancing act of, how finances fit into there. When do you say, gosh, no, we've got to really use those funds elsewhere? And when you say, you know what? We're here to make a movie that's going to be dynamic. Let's spend the money and get the this or get the cool thing for that. So just love to hear how you navigate that.
Yeah, so the three questions were pre-production, what does that look like? Is it mixed in with the development phase? The second one was about the studio. When
Yes.
does money come in?
Yeah. And then how you balance the creativity
Okay.
versus budgeting.
Yeah. Okay. So I hit on this a little bit with the different teams. We like for Learning You, I lumped that together. So we did a year of actual pre-production. We did a half a year of development. So we did about 6 months of really getting to the script to where we wanted it. I think we did like 57 passes after the original one. And like by the end, like 56 and 57, we're talking very small, small changes here. And that was excruciating. I'll tell you guys, the guy that wrote the script, he wrote it about his autistic son. So it's very personal to him, but he's also on the spectrum, and which I love. So it had so much authenticity to the script, but feedback for someone on the spectrum is very different than feedback would be in like traditional movie sense where it's very brutal. So we had to like learn him quite a bit. And he was great once both of us figured out, hey, we're here to we trust each other. But we did that for about 6 months. And that's whenever it kicked into high gear with the different department heads leading these different meetings on a weekly basis. So the creative side of things were in the weeds kind of discussions about what elements need to be in these dream sequences that will add emotional texture rather than be noticeable, that kind of thing. Now the finance meetings were a whole lot easier because finance is cut and dry. Ed's leading these meetings saying did we get this investment? No. Okay, let's go find it from someone else. And then once we got to, at least our rule of thumb is if we get 50% of it financed, we greenlight the thing. So if 50% comes in, then we're full steam ahead. But we also budget in for distribution. So when I'm presenting to investors up front, outside of if it's a theatrical release, we'll do P&A funding at the very end, and it'll be last in, first out for these investors. At 50%, we know hey, we're full steam ahead, and then that's when our finance team is really going out and trying to find the money. So the line producer's not finding the money, but he's letting the producers that are good at finding money, hey, here's what we need, here's why we need it, which leads to the third question. And I'll get back to the studio part of it in a second. But the third question is, in those creative meetings, I tend to be the guy that's okay, but how do we do this where we can actually shoot it? Because it'll be sky's the limit for everyone else. with the dawn of AI, it really helps because we can do a whole lot of things that we couldn't do at one point. But there are still limits to make it like feel like a realistic production. And so finding that balance is making sure you have one person in the room that's saying like, hey, can we actually shoot this or not? And then sometimes you like if they convince me, yeah, we can shoot it, and here's how. I'm like, great, let's do it. Let me call the line producer and then see if we can make this happen, kind of thing. But we have our own studio here, so Jason, you've seen it. We've got 2 sound stages, hair and makeup, wardrobe building, RVs. Like it's just everything you can need for like a little studio, and so that saves a ton of money, especially on the creative side when people are like, can we do this? Well, now most of the time the answer is probably, as long as it's within reason, because we have the ability to have things like endless walls and green screen technology, LED walls that, like if you see Learning You, not one thing that we shot in a car is actually in a car on a road, like it's all on screens. And so that plays a big factor into it. But that was 10 years into my career before we got into that area. So before that, it was a whole lot of, can we do this? If we can't, let's figure out something that we can do that'll still be really creative, but not spend an absurd amount of money on it. Is that all of them? I think I got all of your questions. Great.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm loving the questions and loving the answers too. Kara.
In terms of inviting feedback and the people that you surround yourself with, how can you tell for you or for your producing team when someone has now stepped over the line into disrespect?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think all of us can pretty much tell when we're being disrespected, but if you are someone that is easily offended or defensive, everything's going to feel like disrespect. There's a really good book called Thanks for the Feedback. I take my staff through it. We're getting ready to do it again. Probably like once every 5 years, we reread this book. And the reason is because nobody like inherently loves feedback. Like we don't love negative feedback or even like positive criticism where, hey, this was good, but it could be better. We don't even like that naturally, but we can train ourselves to not be defensive and take a step back and realize this is for the betterment of the project. That's the environment we have here now. It's been a while since we started really like honestly, like it's a staff value of ours. Like we have it written on the wall that we value transparent feedback. So it's been a while since we weren't in that kind of realm. So I don't know how exactly to answer your question, except that everything's going to feel like disrespect until you get over yourself and stop being defensive over everything. But it still goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people, because you don't want just random feedback from people that don't know what they're talking about. And that takes years to develop that kind of trust.
Yeah.
I guess I should have peppered the question with when the feedback is going against the vision of the story.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the benefit of doing so much development into pre-production is I would hope if you're a pretty solid leader that by that point, like the team's bought into the vision of the production. So at least for us, like even in those getting in the weeds meeting, it's not usually like way outside the realm of this makes sense ideas, even though we're like pretty okay with like any ideas, we can throw it out and talk about it. But from the get-go, I think like setting that clarity of what the project is will help. Because if you're 6 months into development and people are still throwing out ideas that don't make any sense with the production, you've got way bigger problems than if you can handle feedback. It all goes back to that clarity from the beginning.
Yeah. Excellent. Another question, Melissa.
I was going to ask, what are some of the qualities or traits you found in really good DPs? And even, I know you're into directing. What do you think some great traits are for those two roles? Because I would be hiring the people, but because that's not my thing. So what are some things that stand out? Or maybe you had a DP that like, oh, he was so good, I want to have him again. He thought ahead of me. He saw problems down the line, or he helped me rethink or talk things out. So I'd like to hear you.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean it's a mixed bag. Like, every DP is like completely different. Here's what I would tell you is that there are projects that are too big for certain DPs. Not talent, like not we're not talking about talent wise right now, but it will get to a point where like the DP they control like pretty much everything you see on the film. So you've got lots of questions being asked to them. They can be the most talented person, but if they can't handle that leadership aspect of it, it's gonna derail the whole production. Which was one of the reasons why it wasn't the DP, but the guy I talked to in the story I told earlier, where I said you can either apologize or move forward. Like that was where it was with him. Like he was really really talented, but it got to the point where he was bottlenecking because it was too big of a project for him.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen in different formats, but yeah.
Yeah. So that from personal experience is a lot more than just like finding a DP that knows how to like light things correctly. Like if they're getting hired, I hope that they would know how to do like the technical aspect of it. It's finding the people that can do both the technical side and then also manage at least their crew that they're leading. DPs and directors will butt heads like a bunch of times because he'll want the coolest golden hour shot in the history of the world, and I'll be like, that makes no sense for the story at all, and then we butt heads. That's normal, but it's whenever they crumble for like 15, 20, 30 minutes a day because they can't handle the pressure. For me at least, that's when I know I can't hire this person or can't work with them again. Also, Christian films, stop shooting directly into the key light like that. Like at minimum, look for that quality. If the person's reel shows like light coming from the same side as the camera and there's no shadows, don't hire them. Like, or at least send them an email and say, have you considered shooting things that look like movies? So.
Excellent. We'd have to up our game and make excellent
Yes.
the norm. Tanya, go ahead.
I have a question because it seems like you've got like the ideal situation. You've got this great team that you're used to working at. You've got your own studio, and yeah, that would be like the dream for everybody. But if we're a producer now, like say a creative producer, did you, when you first started out, were you like looking outside of your own little your sphere because you had your church and you were building talent within the church, which is awesome. But did you ever have a situation where you were looking for a creative producer, someone to team with outside of your sphere? And like line producers, I think that's pretty common to hire outside. But for creative producers and people bringing in finances or marketing, what would that look like? Because that seems to me like that's what I'm building. And so I really don't know at this point what that looks like.
Yeah. So we started with 3 guys. It was myself and 2 other dudes from the church. And we made arguably the worst film ever created in the history of film. That's probably not true because I've seen some really bad films before, but it was up there. I mean, like it would have been in that category. But we grew really close together at that point, and some other people had bought in. So the next film was like a slight step up, still not very good. But that was the first time that we worked with people outside of our sphere of influence. So we brought in some people on the post side that really helped. Not just for production, but just like guidance and like ended up becoming like team members. So then fast forward like 5 or 6 years. And at that point, we were working with a hybrid mix of people from our area and people from all over the country. So like Justin lives in Minnesota. Brad Silverman lives out in Burbank, but they were both co-producers. Danny and Tammy Roebuck, who co-produced this film with us, they live in Burbank and Tampa, Florida. They have houses both places. So they're not anywhere near Louisville area. But we all came together by that point. But that was just years of like slowly building in from the outside. So it takes some time to get there. But yeah, we definitely branched out from just our like sphere of influence.
That's great. A comment about poorly made movies. Tubi has some really poorly made, cheesy movies. So
Listen,
she's sure yours
Tubi, I don't think Tubi would take ours. So
All right, excellent. Moving on to George, please ask your question.
It's a comment and a question to answer. Well, did you find, Tyler, that by serving other people first by serving on other sets. That's a great way to begin to make connections, people that you want to work with. And then they feel like, oh, Tyler was such a great person to work with. I want to help him because he helped me. So I would encourage everybody to sort of look for those opportunities where you can serve on a short film or the 168, project is a great way to start.
Yeah, and I mean even things like what you're doing right now, like just networking with others in the industry. Because I mean, just in this group, we've got people that have made like theatrical release films to they're just starting out. Like you've got like this whole wide gamut. So just connecting with other people through these networking type events, going to conferences, and definitely what George said, just like going on to other people's sets helps a ton. I never really wanted to be a DP, but I knew that if I only ever directed on my own sets or like saw how that worked on my own sets, that it would be like capping my skills. And so I spent like a year DPing like 3 or 4 different projects just to get on other people's sets, and ended up working with in the future a lot of the people I met like on those sets.
That's wonderful. Can you speak to what either one of you actually, because you're both instructors at some point today, the film festivals and how that can help and make you get connections?
Yeah, you meet a whole lot of people there. So I don't know. I was not prepared for that question. So
Sorry.
the biggest benefit for me of a film festival, hands down, is the networking. I mean, there'll be some cool like workshops and things like that, but for the most part, like the reason I go to those things is to meet people. And some of them have ended up becoming like genuine friends, not just like work acquaintances. And so you cannot put a price tag in this industry on networking. Somebody has some skill set somewhere at some festival that's going to be useful in the future for you. And so I would encourage you to go to things like that.
Yeah, it's a small community, and so if you attend one, your chances are you're going to meet at least 50% of the people that are really invested, and then if you go to another one, you'll meet the other 50%. And the ones that I've been going to on a regular basis is a Christian Worldview Film Festival down in Atlanta. It used to be in Nashville, and before that, San Antonio, and then the Content Film Media. The one I've never had a chance to, just because of scheduling for a decade now, is the one in Florida.
You should come.
I would love to. I'm always doing another project, and so hopefully this year. And then finally, there's I mentioned it before, the 168 project, based in LA, and they have a nationwide contest every year. I consider that almost like a conference in that they do gather together to showcase all the work that was done, but you begin to have your regional contacts for all those people that worked on a particular project, and eventually, you'll lift one up yourself, and the people that you serve they'll want to come and serve you. I've had half a dozen people who I suggested that to through the years, who were working on our films, or before they worked on our films, because through Advent Film Group, another organization that I was involved in, and those 6 people became professionals just through that networking. It's and experience that they got. So that's a different kind of quote conference, because it's a working environment.
Yeah.
It's one of the few ones that you're going to cross paths with really high level professionals and people that are just starting out and volunteering as a PA.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I've had the privilege of actually volunteering at all 3 that you mentioned, Content and CWVFF and ICFF, and plan to again this year. Excited. So if you're going to be there, I look forward to meeting you in person as opposed to on video. But Tyler, you've got Purpose Fest. Can you tell us how that started?
Yeah. It started back in 2019. We had an idea of doing it specifically for churches within the media world. And I don't know if you guys remember, something happened in 2020 that made conferences really hard. So that got nixed. We did our first one last year. So we rebranded it to Purpose, and it was less about churches making media and more just for anybody that's in the Christian media world. It'll be year 2 this year. It's in July. You can go to the website, purposefest.net. But it was a really good time last year. We had some pretty incredible instructors and a good turnout and some really cool networking events. So
Awesome. If you need a volunteer, just let me know. So, uh, Melissa Tate asks, do you feel more industry professionals are becoming more open to working on faith-based projects?
I don't know how I want to say this. I think anybody will work on any project for the right amount of money, is basically how this world works. I think there are more people open to working on, I'm going to sound so cynical. There are people that are willing to work on faith-based things because right now it's been proven in the last 5 years
That's
that
where the
faith-based
money
movies
is.
can make money.
Yeah.
So the more exposure we get to that, the more we're going to see some like Hollywood level actors specifically that have some names that will seep into it. Just be really careful, guys. That's all I'm going to say about that. So,
Yeah. All right, good.
and that's not to say that's a bad thing that they're working on it. It's just like whenever you see somebody on a press junket saying, "I did this for this reason," like just know there's another underbelly that does exist, unfortunately,
Yeah.
and a lot of it traces back to the money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an unfortunate thing. And
Yeah,
we can just pray for them
yeah,
because if they're in that environment with some faith-filled believers, then
yeah. But
nothing is wasted in
that
God's
also goes
economy.
back into the walking the talk thing that I talked about because it's not just the secular world. Like
Yeah.
the Christian film industry has that exact same problem. It's just hidden better, and so
Yeah.
we have to be like as individuals, our heart posture has to be one that walks the same talk that we talk, so that we don't fall into that category.
And I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that too. Go ahead again, George.
Yeah, on the crew side, I've been working now with 2 or 3 people who lived in Los Angeles and have moved to other parts of the country because there's not enough work in LA. And they're Christians. They've always wanted to work in faith-based film. So it's a migration that I think it's a healthy one, especially beneficial to the faith-based community of filmmakers. A lot of them are congregating around the 2 cities that's Nashville, Franklin, Tennessee area, and Atlanta, and now even what was the other one? Texas. Yep.
There's like a weird
Um,
community of Christian film people also in Chattanooga because it's like directly in between Nashville and Atlanta. So like just like everyone thought, Chattanooga, Tennessee would be the the place to go.
New hub. Excellent. What do you think it will take to raise the bar for quality in Christian films? Is the question. Probably our last one.
Yeah, I think we just need to make good films. I don't mean that like facetiously. It's just like the word Christian film should not be on there. It should be like, what will it take for us to raise the quality of us as filmmakers? And like
Yes.
we can watch movies that are really, like, I've never made something like Casablanca before that's gonna stand the test of time. But man, I hope so. I hope I would like to. And then can I implement Christ's allegories and themes on top of that? Absolutely. We've seen secular directors do that sometimes better than we've seen Christian filmmakers do that. And so I think sometimes we take that Christian film badge and we wear it with both pride and with being okay with just being okay. So like we don't stretch ourselves creatively. We don't do things that seem like risks because that's not the Christian film way of making a film. But if you look through the history of actual filmmaking, like the risk takers and the ones that told unique stories that people hadn't heard before, that's the ones that people remember. And I think we can start doing that. But it goes back to our own heart postures. So if we're doing that for God's glory, then we're making good films that are made by Christians that have a Christ-centered theme. But if we just set out to make a sermon in a movie format, I'm not sure we're ever going to raise the quality as an actual film. It might start looking better, technology advanced, so it'll sound better, things like that. But the regular Joe Schmo will watch it and be like, this isn't a film. This is a church service.
Yeah. Go ahead, George.
Two things. What Tyler was teaching today is fundamental. I mean, having that foundation and the way that the set functions is so critical to the outcome of the finished piece, before and during and after. The second one is a great lead-in actually to what I'll be teaching. That's really the goal of what I want to talk about. So I just want to encourage everybody that's on this particular session to just stick around, because I've got some new ways I think that you'll want to consider in approaching your story. Specifically, what Tyler was saying: how do we elevate the storytelling so it's not a sermon? And yet, the Lord has actually provided a lot of solutions. We just have not been maybe aware of it yet, and I think He's opened things up.
Yeah,
we planned that.
Thank you.
I just said it on the T4, and we totally planned that
awesome.
out.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. Oh, thank you all so much.
Thank you guys
for everything. Really appreciate everybody coming out, and thank you, Tyler. This was wonderful. Thank you, George, for your input, and everybody who asked questions. This was a wonderful time together.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful day.